Hello, my name is Przemek, and today I'm going to be explaining how to convert a built-in variable, elapsed time, into something more readable for our audience. So let's start. As you know, there are some built-in variables that allow you to measure time spent on the slide, and let's have a look. So this is, for example, a measure of how long I stayed on the first scene. So you see it's counting a scene elapsed time. As I'm talking and staying on the slide, the counter is going up. So I'll move to the next slide and you see the time was preserved. So it's still counting for the whole scene. I'm going to go to the third slide. This is the third slide on this scene and the last slide. So once it finishes, I'll go and click next. And you can see that the total amount of time spent on the scene one, it was 27,025 milliseconds. It's very difficult to decipher if you don't know how to recalculate that, and for our users it might not be that useful. So there is a way to do that. Of course, you could use JavaScript to easily calculate minutes, seconds, and milliseconds out of it, but I want to show you how it can be done with a built-in solution, so without using JavaScript. So let's have a look. So here I'm not doing a lot. It's just counting and measuring time. And then at the very end, when I'm finishing with the scene, I'm just adding one trigger that allows you to save the time from the built-in variable. So you can see there is a built-in scene elapsed time variable, and I'm saving that time into my custom variable that I've named scene1 total elapsed time. And this is only to preserve that, to save it, so it's not like lost. So once it is done, when they click save or when they click next to move on, we're going to jump to the next slide in the final scene where you could see the summary, right? It was the number here for that total elapsed time. So I'll just maybe take it away. And what we're going to do, you know that every 1000 milliseconds is 1 second. So this is our exchange rate, right? At the same time, following that logic, every 60 seconds that is a minute will boil down to 60,000 milliseconds, because you multiply 60 seconds within a minute times 1000, so it gives you 60,000, which is really good and easy then to follow, because what we can do, we could use those exchange rates to calculate how many minutes someone spent in that scene one and how many seconds, and then of course how many milliseconds. And I'm going to be presenting first how it works, and then we can jump into the configuration. So one more time, let's play with that. So you can see that I spent already around second, 3 seconds now. I don't know if we're going to go up to minute. We can play with that later, but I'll click next and next, and you can see I spent 12 seconds, 610 milliseconds, and this is already recalculating with the formula, with triggers that I'm using. It's already recalculating the data. What we can also do, I've put here a dummy variable where you can provide any value in milliseconds to see if it calculates correctly. So you can see I put a much larger number than we weighted in the scene one, and we can just easily at the very top, we can target that variable instead of the scene one total elapsed time. So this is where we save our time spent in the scene one. I can easily change that. Let me go back to the slide, and I'll just change it to our test scene milliseconds, and we're going to see that it still works. So it should take, even though it's 0, it takes that value that I've provided in the variable, and it says that we spent 20 minutes, 57 seconds, and 874 milliseconds. So this is how it works. And of course, I'll be attaching that story file in the description, so you can have a look on your own and play with it. But high level overview first. So what we are basically doing. So imagine that someone spent that amount of milliseconds on the scene one. What we want to do with that? We know that every minute within that space takes away 60 60,000 milliseconds. So what we can do, if our whole space is that many milliseconds, we can chunk it, we can deduct or subtract 60 seconds, and on the side just note down that we already take it away 60,000, which means that we took away 1 second from that counter. And this is what we do here. So we can see that in that space of time we could fit only two 60,000 values. And this means that someone spent 2 minutes because it translates into that value, and the rest is 4,567 milliseconds. This is what will be as a reminder when we take away those milliseconds that indicate 2 minutes already. And this is visually here represented. So we took away those 2 minutes from the total, and then what left is this orange space of 4,567 milliseconds. So we got here. And because we cannot fit in any more seconds in translated into milliseconds in that number, because it's much larger, 60,000 is much larger than 4,567, we got to go and now check that there's for sure 2 minutes, but now we need to check how many seconds. And now if you remember, 1 second is 1,000 milliseconds. So straight away from here we can see that we have 4,000 here. So this means that we have 4,000 milliseconds, which translates into 4 seconds, and the rest that stays is 567 milliseconds. And this is what we do in triggers. This is how we work with that. So in the end, what we will get, it's 2 minutes, 4 seconds, and 567 milliseconds. And we can just double check that. I'll just check if the value that I've put there is the correct one. So let's copy that. I'll go back here and then populate that in our dummy variable. So this is the one, and then 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and let's have a look if it's going to work. And maybe I can replace that here for a time, or maybe not. Let's have a look. So we remember it should be 2 minutes, 4 seconds, and 567 milliseconds. And this is exactly what we've got here, just by looking at it. 2 minutes, 4 seconds, 567 milliseconds. So this is how it works. And now let's go to triggers. So with triggers, we have few variables, of course, and if I just attach that, you will see that what I'm doing here at the very beginning, when the timer starts, I need to have a storage for those milliseconds, the summary, the total number of milliseconds. I don't want to keep it in that base kind of variable, because it can go away once I move to another scene. So what I want to do, I want to set the scene total elapsed time minutes that I will be manipulating. I want to set that to my variable. So I'm going to do that right now. So this is the one that we are setting when a user is leaving the scene 1. And once it is done, we can work with some variables. So as you see, what I'm doing here, I'm using subtraction. So you can see that I'm subtracting, so taking away 60,000 milliseconds every time that slight elapsed time changes, because it changes very rapidly. So I'm using a variable to trigger that trigger. And it goes every single time in a loop, always when our time minutes is still above 60,000. So if there are still any minutes left in the total number. So it's subtracting or taking away, and in our example, it takes it twice, and then the number is too small to take another minute. So what it does, it stops first of all, and then what it does, it takes the reminder, what's left, and it assigns it to our seconds, because now we are looking at seconds. We already know that there are 2 minutes, but now we want to see how many seconds. So what it does, it assigns the reminder, the leftovers that is still kept in the total elapsed time minutes. It takes that and assigns to another variable that we're going to be working with. It's with the time seconds. And it does it when the value of the elapsed time minutes, so the value from which we are subtracting the data, is below 60,000. So it's below 1 full minute. Once it does it, we go and do the same for seconds, but with the smaller numbers. You can see that now we are deducting from subtracting the data from the seconds variable, and we are checking how long that variable will be higher or equal to 1000, which indicates 1 second. And it goes in a loop, and again it's adding 1 every time the criteria is met. And as soon as it is not, so the value is lower than 1000, so we don't have an opportunity to fit in another second, it saves the reminder, so the very small number below 1000, it saves it into full milliseconds. And this way, what we can display here, and I'll just hide that for a second. It takes some time, of course, that's why I'm using this calculating. It can display full minutes, it can display full seconds and full milliseconds. And I guess that's it. So just have a look, download the template. And now, because we don't have any input, it's 0, it will be those initial numbers. But if I go back to the scene 1, so let's run the full project. And yeah, it's going up. So maybe let's wait that 1 minute. We'll see what's gonna happen, or maybe not. You can try it on yourself. I'll just go next, and it's around I guess 15 seconds now. So now it should be 0 minutes, 16 seconds, and 468 milliseconds. So this is how it can be calculated. And that's it. Thank you. See you next time.